Can you hear me?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Now,
Oh.
yes. Yes.
I can switch. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः हरि ओं श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, entitled The Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. Second. Kapila Uvacha Tasyaitasya Jano Nunam Nayam Veduru Vikramam Kalyamanopi Balino Vayur Iva Ganavalihi. The personality of Godhead said, as a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of the wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of time factor by which he is being carried. Yam yam arthamupadate dukkhena sukha hetave tam tam dunoti bhagavan umman chochati chosati yatkrite. Whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so called happiness, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the time factor destroys, and for this reason the conditioned soul laments. यद् अध्रुवस्य देहस्य सानुबन्धस्य दुर्मतिः ध्रुवाणि मन्यते मोहाद् गृहक्षेत्रवसूनि च. The misguided materialist does not know that his very body is impermanent and that the attractions of home, land and wealth which are in relationship to that body are also temporary. Out of ignorance only, he thinks that everything is permanent. जन्तुर्वै भव एतस्मिन् यां यां योनिम् अनुव्रजेत् तस्यां तस्यां स लभते निर्वृत्तिं न virajyate. The living entity, in whatever species of life he appears, finds a particular type of satisfaction in that species, and he is never averse to being situated in such a condition. नरकस्थोऽपि देहं वै न पुमांस्त्यक्तुम् इच्छति नारक्यां निवृतौ सत्यां देवमाया विमोहितः. The conditioned living entity is satisfied in his own particular species of life, which, deluded by the covering influence of the illusory energy, he feels little inclined to cast off his body, even when in hell, for he takes delight in hellish enjoyment. आत्मजाया सुतागारा पशुद्रविणो बन्धुषु निरूढ मूलहृदय आत्मानं बहुमन्यते. Such satisfaction with one's standard of living is due to deep-rooted attraction for body, wife, home, children, animals, wealth, and friends. In such association, the conditioned soul thinks himself quite perfect. Sandhyamana sarvanga esham udvahanadina karoti aviratam mudho duritani durashayah. Although he is always burning with anxiety, such a fool always performs all kinds of mischievous activities with a hope which is never to be fulfilled in order to maintain his so called family and society. आक्षिप्तात्म इन्द्रिया स्त्रीणम् असतीनां च मायया रहो रचितालापै Shishunam Kalabhashanam. He gives heart and senses to a woman who falsely charms him with Maya. He enjoys solitary embraces and talking with her, and is enchanted by the sweet words of the small children. Griheshu Kuta Dharmeshu Dukha Tantreshva Atandriyah Kurman Dukha Pratikaram Sukhavam Manyate Grihi. The attached householder remains in his family life, which is full of diplomacy and politics, always spreading miseries and controlled by acts of sense gratification. He acts just to counteract the reactions of all his miseries, and if he can successfully counteract such miseries, he thinks that he is happy. अर्थैरापादितैर्गुर्व्यां हिंसयेतस्तथा च तान् पुष्णाति येषां पोषेण शेषभुग्याति अधः स्वयं. He secures money by committing violence here and there, and although he employs it in the service of his family, he himself eats only a little portion of food thus purchased, and he goes to hell for those for whom he earned the money in such an irregular way. वार्तायां लुप्यमानायाम् आरभ्यायां पुनः पुनः लोभाभिभूतो निःसत्वः परार्थे कुरुते स्पृहम्. When he suffers reverses in his occupation, he tries again and again to improve himself. But when he is baffled in all attempts and is ruined, he accepts money from others because of excessive greed. कुटुम्बभरणाकल्पो मन्दभाग्यो वृतोद्यमः श्रियां विहीनः कृपणो ध्यायञ्च्वत्सिति मूढधीः. Thus, the unfortunate man, unsuccessful in maintaining his family members, is bereft of all beauty. He always thinks of his failure, grieving very deeply. एवं स्वभरणाकल्पं तत्कलत्रादस तथा नाद्रियन्ते यथा पूर्वं कीनाशा इव गोचरम्. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before, even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their own and worn out oxen. तत्रापि अजत निर्वेदो म्रियमाणः स्वयं वृतैः जरयोपात्त वैरूप्यो मरणाभिमुखो गृहे. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. आस्तेवमत्योपय sorry आस्तेवमत्योपन्यसत् आस्तेवमत्योपयस्तं गृहपाल इवाहरन् आमयावि अप्रदीप्तज्ञैर् अलप् अल्पाहारोल्पचेतसः. Let me read again, sorry. आस्ते अवमात्योपन्यस्तं गृहपाल इवाहरन् आमयावि अप्रदीप्ताग्निर् अल्पाहारोल्पचेतसः. Thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, uh, he eats only very small morsels of food and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. वायुनोत्क्रमोत्तरः कप्पा समृद्धनाडिकः काशाश्वासकृतायासः कंठे घुर घुरायते. In that diseased condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within, and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces sound like ghura ghura, a rattling within the throat. शयानः परिशोचब्दिः परिवीतः स्वबन्धुभिः वाच्यमानोऽपि न ब्रूते कालापाशवशं गतः. In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the control of time. यवं कुटुम्बभरणे जितेन्द्रियः म्रियते रुदतां स्वानाम् उरुवेदनायास्तधीः. Thus, the man who engaged with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief, seeing his relatives crying. He dies most pathetically in great pain and without consciousness. यमदूतौ तदा प्राप्तौ भीमौ सरभसे क्षणौ स दृष्ट्वा तृष्टा हृदयः सकृन्मूत्रं विमुञ्चति. At death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. यातना देह आवृत्य पाशैर्बद्ध्वा गले बलात् नयतो दीर्घम् अध्वानं दण्ड्यं राजभटायता. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. तयोर्निर्भिन्नहृदयस्तर्जनैर्जात वेपतुः पतिस्वभिर्भक्ष्यमान आर्तोघं स्वअनुस्मरन्. While carried by the constables of Yamaraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is thus terribly distressed. क्षुत्तृत्परीतोऽर्कदवानलानिलैः सन्तप्यमान पतिसप्तवालुके कृच्छ्रेण पृष्ठे कषया च ताडितश्चलति अशक्तोऽपि निराश्रमोदके. Upon the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through the roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and he is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, no place for rest on the road. तत्र तत्र पतञ्च्रान्तो मूर्छितः उत्थितः पतापापीयसा नीतस्तरसा यमसादनम्. While passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraja, he falls down in fatigue and sometimes he becomes unconscious. But he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. योजनानां सहस्राणि नवतिं नवचाद्वनः त्रिभिर्मुहूर्तेर्द्वाभ्यां वा नीतः प्राप्नोति यातनाः. Thus he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. आदीपनं स्वगात्राणां वेष्टयित्वोन्मुखादिभिः आत्ममांसादनं क्वापि स्वकृतं परतोऽपि वा. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases, he is made to eat his own flesh or have to eaten by others. जीवतश्चान्त्राभ्य sorry, जीवतश्चान्त्र अभ्युदराधारः स्वगृध्रैर्यमसाधने Sarpa Vishchika Damshradhyir Dadabhi Chatma Vaishasam. His entrails are pulled out by the hounds, what do you call it? Hounds and vultures of hell, even though he is still alive to see it, and he is subjected to torments by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and other creatures that bite him. कृन्तनं चावयवसो गजादिभ्यो विदापनं पातनं गिरिशृङ्गेभ्यो रोधनं चाम्बुगर्तयोः. Next, his limbs are lopped off and torn asunder by elephants. He is hurled down from hillocks, and he is also held captive either in water or in a cave. यास्तामिश्रान्धतामिश्र रौरवाध्याश्च यातनाः भुङ्क्ते नरो वनारीव मितः सङ्गेन निर्मिताः. Men and women whose lives were built upon indulge in illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamishra, Andhatamishra and Raurava. अत्रैव नरकः स्वर्ग इति मातः प्रचक्षसे प्रचक्षते या यातना वै नारक्यस्ता इहापि उपलक्षिता. Lord Kapila continued, "My dear mother, it is sometimes said that we experience hell or heaven on this planet, for hellish punishments are sometimes visible on this planet also. एवं कुटुम्बं बिभ्राण उदरं भर एव वा विसृजेहोभय प्रेत्य भुङ्क्ते तत्फलम् ईदृशम्." After leaving this body, the man who maintained himself and his family members by sinful activities suffers a hellish life, and his relatives suffer also. एकः प्रपद्यते द्वान्तं हित्वेदं स्वकलेवरं कुशलेतरः पातेयो भूतद्रोहेण यद्भृतम्. He goes alone to the darkest regions of hell after quitting the present body, and the money he acquired by envying other living entities is the passage money with which he leaves this world. दैवेनासादितं तस्य शमलं निरये पुण्वान् भुङ्क्ते कुटुम्बपोषस्य हृत्वा वित्त इवातुरः. Thus, by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the maintainer of kinsmen is put into a hellish condition to suffer for his sinful activities, like a man who has lost his wealth. केवलेन हि अधर्मेण कुटुम्ब भरणोत्सुकः याति जीवोऽन्धतामिश्रं चरमं तमसः पदम्. Therefore, a person who is very eager to maintain his family and kinsmen simply by black methods certainly goes to the darkest region of hell, which is known as Andhatamishra. अधस्तान्नरलोकस्य यातनादयः क्रमस्य समनुक्रम्य पुनरत्र व्रजेषुषि. Having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. Thus ends this chapter 30 from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Description, a description by Lord Kapila of adverse fruitive activities. Hare Krishna. I don't know how pleasantly you felt, but the reality is sometimes quite heavy to understand, to accept, and also help us to be very cautious in our dealings in this world. Firstly, I would like to offer my deep condolences and sincere prayers for the ones who were killed in a disaster that happened in Ahmedabad, where a flight couldn't fly well, and the people were burnt. Yeah, may Lord give them shelter and bless them. that they don't go through any of these hells, but may they be taken care by the Lord, that they can be engaged in His service. This particular chapter helps us to understand the necessity of being very serious. And it is said that Lord, in the form of time factor, does a very important role in our life, isn't it? We always think if an atheist person is thinking that there is no Lord, definitely, yeah, he's a fool, because the Lord is coming in the end as a time factor, yeah, in the form of death. No, not only that, every moment is, every passing moment is actually for us, it's dead. Yeah. So that's why we are usually asked, how old are you? Yeah, then we say we are just 35 years old, which means I have, uh, I died for last 35 years every day. Yeah. And how? Which means the time is the factor which is ticking every moment. And then in this process, whatever the work that we are doing, accordingly we are suffering, or yeah, getting freedom from these things. I don't know, understanding the importance of this chapter, and if we can go a little deeper from the purports, I think we will be really benefiting a lot. I'll try to keep as short as possible. And yeah. So, in this, it is said, the Lord is saying, a mass of clouds does not know uh, powerful influence of wind. Similarly, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of time factor. That's why we are thinking that there is a scope for us to live longer, 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 or in finite times, or in eternally. In fact, after 10 years, there will be advancement in science that we will live forever. No, it's not going to work, because who dictates us our life is the Lord in the form of time factor. Prabhupada writes in the purport, politician Pandit known as Chanakya named said that even one moment of time cannot be returned even if one is prepared to pay millions of dollars. One cannot calculate the amount of loss there is in wasting valuable time. Oh, no, no. We have got so much used to wasting our time. That's why wasting of time is not taken so seriously. A person who failed just by one, what do you call, uh, mm, by 1 minute, yeah, he knows the value of time. It is even said a rocket may fail just if it's not precisely launched with a precision of fraction of a second. The value of time is so much that once it's gone, is gone. Either materially or spiritually, Prabhupada writes, one should be very alert in utilizing the time which he has at his disposal. Never, never think that, oh, I am going to live for 100 years. If if so, we are blessed, but what are we going to do? We want to add what? We want to add quality to the life, not quantity. Of course, we can add quantity if it makes sense that the quality is in. Yeah. A conditioned soul living in a particular body or for a fixed measurement of time, and it is recommended in the scriptures that within that small measurement of time, one has to finish Krishna consciousness and thus gain release from this influence of time and time factor. Yeah, yam artham upadate. It says whatever one acquires, whatever is produced by materialist, time factor is going to take away. And for this reason, conditioned soul laments. This Sochati, he is so much into lamentation. Oh, I lost that. Oh, I lost this. Oh, what should I do? Oh, no. Lamenting, lamenting all the life unknowingly, or not really paying attention. The plan of the Lord is what? To destroy what we don't really need. We may have earned with right, we may have earned legally whatever we may have earned, but if it is befitting for us, it will stay. Otherwise, your Lord will remove that. Now, the materialist thing, they think that by advancing in satisfying the material needs of man, they will be happy. But they forget that everything that is produced will be destroyed in due course of time. Just like a bridge. We may think the bridge can stay forever, or we may think, oh, this flight, for example, oh, we may think, hey, I have full faith in this, that it will go from wherever it is, Ahmedabad to London, whatever. No, it didn't happen. Why? Who? It just, if I think it doesn't happen, there is a higher purpose, higher energy that is defining what can happen. In due course of time, they have all been destroyed. Still, the foolish materialist cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and they have an eternal engagement also. And very clearly in the second purport, last line, not knowing this fact, they take the small flash of time to be everything, and they waste time in improving economic condition. So that is our condition. So misguided materialist does not know that his very body is impermanent. Out of ignorance only he thinks that everything is permanent. Huh? In fact, materialists they think, when someone is asking to chant Hare Krishna, the materialists think that persons engaged in Krishna consciousness are crazy people, wasting time by chanting Hare Krishna. But actually, he does not know that he himself is in the darkest region of craziness because of accepting his body as permanent. In fact, a Krishna conscious person knows that this economic development of human society is but temporary illusion. When we are matured enough, we can understand they have come so many recessions, of course, in the name of Y2K, in the name of whatever, no? So many things, in the name of religion, in the name of economic crisis, in the name of what do you call, anyway, so many things. That is a proof that it means that the world can never be a blissful place forever. When it is written here in the end, when all economic development and material advancement are utilized to advance the cause of Krishna consciousness, a new phase of progressive life arises. How can we? Yeah, it's so nice you have said the problem. No, it's not so nice that you have said the problem. What is the solution? Whatever the economic development it is there, whatever material advancement we have made, should be engaged in improving the lives of everyone. How is it possible? By engaging them in Krishna consciousness. Uh, and then the living entity in whatever species of life he appears first finds a particular type of satisfaction in that species. This is an amazing process of Maya. If we want to say the best magician, the best thing that we can't even realize there is a magic. Even if we want to know how this magic is done, it's impossible to know. What is that? That is Maya. Maya has two phases of activities. One is uh, prakshepatmika and other one is avarnatmika. Avarnatmika means covering, prakshepatmika means pulling down. These are two activities of Maya. I think we also covered in recent other chapter. A man in a higher position may feel dissatisfaction with the standard of living of a lower grade man, but the lower grade man is satisfied in that position because of spell of Maya. Very simple. Uh, though we may think, no, how nice it would be. Uh, uh, how we are very much disgusted by the life of a pig, but the pig is so satisfied in its own life. I think in the purport itself it said, even a hog which lives by eating stool finds himself happy, although a person in higher mode of life sees that the hog is eating stool. How abominable that life is. So that is how we think. And the higher species, or one who is matured, or like a brahmana or a devotee, he is seeing us, hey, see this karmis, how much they are attached to all these temporary things. What are they eating? Yeah, they are eating something which is not good for them. The conditioned living entity is satisfied in his own particular species of life while diluted by the covering influence of illusory energy. He feels like inclined to cast off his body even when in hell, for he takes delight in hellish enjoyment. Oh, he thinks wonderful. In fact, Prabhupada writes in the purport, I think recently we also covered this particular chapter in Bhagavatam. It is said that once Indra, the king of heaven, was cursed by his spiritual master Brihaspati on account of his misbehavior, and he became a hog on this planet. After many days, when Brahma wanted to recall him to his heavenly kingdom, Indra, in the form of hog, forgot everything of his royal position in heavenly kingdom, and he refused to go back. This is the spell of Maya. Even Indra forgets his heavenly standards of life and is satisfied with what standard a hog is enjoying. So that is our problem. Maya is quite dangerous. Everyone is satisfied with his standard of living, however abominable it may be. Yeah, that's why it said such satisfaction with one's standard of living is due to deep-rooted attraction for body, wife, home, children, animal, wealth, and friends. Now, come on, which one can get we get free from? Is it from the body? No, we need this body, and we are depending so much to this body, and that's why we cannot just say, "Hey, body, go to hell. I will not eat today." It doesn't work. Or wife, or home, or children, or animals. I mean protection. Animals means, or let's say, no, no, I don't want any animals. I don't want to depend on animals. More dairy products. No, no transportation. No, it's not possible. And friends, in such association, conditioned soul thinks himself quite perfect. This so-called perfection of human life is a concoction. Prabhupada writes in the purport. It's just we are thinking. Our definition is to have all these things is perfect. Therefore, it is said that the materialist, however materially qualified he may be, is worthless because he is hovering on the mental plane, which will drag him again to the material existence of temporary life. So that is the condition of so-called society, friendship, love, and conditional soul appearing completely satisfied is just concoction. And I mean, seventh verse is very important. Although he always is always burning with anxiety, such a fool always performs all kind of mischievous activities with a hope which is never to be fulfilled in order to maintain his so-called family and society. Hmm. Yeah, in the purport, Prabhupada says, it is said that it is easier to maintain a great empire than to maintain a small family. Especially in these days when the influence of Kali Yuga is so strong that everyone is harassed and full of anxieties because of accepting false presentation of Maya. The materialists do not know that family, society, friendship here in this material world are only shadows, and thus they become attached. Naturally, their hearts are always burning, but in spite of all inconvenience, they still work to maintain such false families because they have no information of the real family association with Krishna. That is our problem. And it says, he gives heart and senses to a woman who falsely charms him with Maya. He enjoys solitary embraces and talking with her, and he enchanted with sweet words of the small children. So this is going, and then what is happening? All these things, always spreading miseries and controlled by acts of sense gratification. He acts just to counteract the reactions of his all miseries. But this miseries is not going to go away. Why? The material world is so made that unless one becomes a clever diplomat, his life will be a failure. What is a clever diplomat means? Huh? It is not to speak of human society. Even the society of lower animals, birds, bees, cleverly manage its bodily demand of eating, sleeping, and mating. Human society competes nationally and individually. Therefore, all our attempts to become happy in this material world are simply delusion offered by Maya. We are still talking about the problem. And then because of that, he starts committing so many problems, so many sins. And after that, what is happening? When he suffers reverses in his occupation. Oh, you thought your manager will pat your shoulder and or give you a trophy, or recognition, a reward program is waiting for you. No, when he sees all these reversals, he tries again and again to improve himself. Oh, no, 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 let me prove myself. Let me improve my situation for better recognition. But when he is baffled in all attempts and is ruined, he accepts money from others because of excessive greed. So then what he does? Oh, I have so many desires and all these are not fulfilled with my effort. Let me take it from someone else. Kutumba bharana kalpo, akalpo, unable to maintain. He does all these things. He always thinks of his failure, grieving very deeply. And then when he comes home, he is not given proper respect. Seeing him unable to support family, his wife and others do not treat him with same respect as before. It is judicious, Prabhupada writes, it is judicious, therefore, to give up family attachment before one attains old age and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is justified if the family life is terribly, terribly, terribly taking one away from the Lord. because of all these things. Prabhupada writes, similarly, when an attached person in family life becomes old and is unable to earn, he is no longer liked by his wife, sons, daughters, and other kinsmen, and he consequently neglected. He is neglected. What to speak of not being given respect? So these things happen. We would have seen in our life how others are treated sometimes around us. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those uh, whom he once maintained. Yeah, in fact, this is what Vyasadeva comes and tells to Dhritarashtra, saying, hey, are you still, are you not ashamed of being taken care by Yudhishthir? Huh? How ill you have treated them, and now how can you so shamelessly be here? But Dhritarashtra was still, because of his afraid, how he can maintain his life. He was just taking shelter at Dhritarashtra, at Yudhishthir. So, but reality is, deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. The death is waiting. This is what Vyasadeva says. Before death comes, let's go and perfect our life. And he takes Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, and they attain perfection. In fact, they attain. Thus, he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. And because of that, he may come to the last phase of his life, and then when he is dying, in this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends, relatives, and although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can speak. That is what is happening. What is that? Kante gurgurayate. This is what happens if you are with, yeah, near death experiences of some your dear when you are there. This is very evident, especially that time the consciousness is want to talk but they can't talk. They want to breathe, they can't breathe. This mucus is blocking the throat, and because of which this is what happens. Uh, Kasha swasa. What is happening is this coughing, khas. In Hindi there is this word khas. This kasa, shwasa, kritayasa. Kritayasa, this is done with great difficulty. Krita means activity, um, ayasa, difficulty. With that great difficulty, a person is struggling to maintain his body. In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, and then their friends come, lament, and of course that's what they can do. They can only lament, or they can't do much for formalities. I mean, Prabhupada writes, and in fact I also heard from some other spiritual speaker saying, for formality's sake, when a man is lying on his deathbed, his relatives come to him, and sometimes they cry very loudly, addressing the dying man, "Oh my father, oh my friend, oh my husband." In that pitiable condition, the dying man wants to speak with them and instruct them of his desires. But because he is fully under the control of time factor, death, he cannot express himself, and that causes him inconceivable pain. He is already in painful condition because of disease, and his glands and throat are choked up with mucus. He is already very difficult position. Now this is what, yeah. I mean, we it's we may have already such experiences when we see someone come say, "Oh, hey, are you still alive?" People ask, yeah, whenever some guests come to see the last, what do you call this, last visit. Hmm? That's sometimes very strange. They shake the body and say, "Hey, you're still active. Can you really hear me? Can you really recognize me?" Yeah, as if like they want to know great about themselves. Yeah, causing all inconveniences. And yeah, there's so much drama that happens, yeah, around the person who is the person should be given all facilities so that he can peacefully leave the body. What is the best facility to live peacefully is hearing to the holy name of the Lord, hearing to Bhagavad Gita, hearing to Bhagavatam. That calms them from the anxiety, that removes the desires that they may have, that removes that interest to talk, to share something, to tell something, to want something. No, that is the time the mind should become very calm. That is the mind. Why? Because when you have physical strength, you may still want to do so many things. When a person is lying on the dead bed, what is he doing? He is totally relying not on his strength, yeah, because his body literally cannot move. He's only, even if he want to do something, he can't do. He's so totally dependent. Just like a very, very newborn infant is totally dependent on his mother or her mother, similarly, a person who is dying on the deathbed is totally depending on the relatives who are actually creating the spiritual environment around him or her. What is the environment that is there to have the tulsi water? It's not like, oh, not just any tulsi water. The tulsi should be offered to the Lord because that becomes prasad. Only offer that tulsi that has become prasad to the Lord. We can't just take a tulsi and just drop in the mouth of the person. No, why? Because this tulsi is not offered usually. I mean, the devotee, tulsi is performing great, great austerities and wants herself to be offered to the Lord first, and then that prasadam is what is given. Tulsi water is or Ganga water, all these things to be offered to the Lord first and then given. And then the atmosphere should be spiritually vibrant with hearing all. There should not be any gap of or some people coming and discussing how this has happened and all these things. Forget about that. What is important is to provide the environment that they can get out of the cycle of birth and death. That moment, yeah, when we talk about who is this Ajamila, we can see just if one fortunately is hearing to the holy name at that last moment, what happens is excellently described in the sixth canto. Yeah, we are third canto. We when we go to sixth canto, we cover there. We can see how Ajamil has got whatever the hellish conditions that we will read later, one can be one can escape that suffering that is there in the in the description by just taking to the name of the Lord, chanting always. Let the person who is on the deathbed can chant, or if he or she cannot chant, let us create such a way that the person can hear. It is said that the most important organ of our body, of course, we may say it's mouth, yeah, because through which we are able to eat and then maintain strength. No, it is not the material strength that can help us. It is that spiritual strength that comes through the process of hearing through the ear. So we provide such a facility of hearing. That is very important. And rather than crying or rather than screaming or rather than shouting or rather than cracking jokes and or whatever, no, that's not the time. It's very in that pitiable condition by the dying man wants to speak with them. No, we want to facilitate that they can attain the success of their life. In fact, Evam Kutumba Bharane, and thus the man, I mean, we are talking about ordinary deaths. We are talking about ordinary death and its consequences from verse number 18 to 30. It says, thus the man who engages with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies with grief, great grief, seeing his relatives crying. He dies most pathetically in great pain and without consciousness. And after that, what is happening? At the time, Yamadutas are coming and they are taking. Just seeing the fearsome form of the Yamadutas itself makes one pass urine, stool, out of fear. Uh, Yatana Deha Avritya. Yatana Deha is a body. Yeah, I think sometimes people may ask, how come that a person is dead and why why are we still telling that his legs are pulled, his eyes are pulled out from his, how is it possible? Because then the soul is given a special dress. Just like if a person gets into a jail, he will not have all this fancy, what do you call this? The dress, casual dress. No, he will have his own prisoner dress. Yatana deha avritya pasher bandhva gale balat. So what is happening is, as a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constable, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, every living entity is covered by a subtle and gross body. The subtle body is covering of mind, ego, and intelligence and consciousness. Four things. It is said in scriptures that the constable of Yamaraja cover the subtle body of the culprit, hmm, and take him to the abode of Yamaraj to be punished in a way that he is able to tolerate. This is very nice. It's a test of tolerance in the Yamaloka. How much can you tolerate? He does not die from this punishment, because if he died, then who would suffer the punishment? It is not the business of the constable of Yamaraj to put one to death. In fact, it is possible to kill a living entity because factually he is eternal. Sorry. In fact, it is not possible to kill. He simply has to suffer the consequences of his activities of sense gratification. The process of punishment is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Formerly, the king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of river. They would bunk him by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him completely underwater. And when he was almost suffocated, then he is taken out. Then he takes some breath, and again he is done. This sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten souls by Yamaraj as will be described in verses. I'll just quickly go. Yeah, I think the hell's description, everything is given. We go to Kapila is saying, my dear mother, it is sometimes said we experience hell or heaven on this planet. For hellish punishments are sometimes visible on this planet also. What does that mean? It means it is not that they are only on the planet where Yamaraj lives. On the planet of Yamaraj, the sinful man is given chance to practice living in hellish condition. Huh? For example, if a man is to be punished to remain in hell and eat stool and urine, then first of all he practices such habits on the planet of Yamaraj. Anyway, that is just a detail. After leaving this body, the man who maintained himself and his family members by sinful activities suffer a hellish life, and his relatives suffer also. Uh, so in the purport, Prabhupada writes, mistake of modern civilization is that man does not believe in the next life. But whether he believes or not, the next life is there, and one has to suffer if one does not lead a responsible life in terms of scriptures. Species lower than human being are not responsible for their actions because they are made to act in a certain way. But in the developed, so we may say, na, animals, no, animals will not have karma. It's only the humans. Then he is sure to get to hellish life as described herein. And then, yeah, we are coming, how many? Yeah, we're coming close. Therefore, a person who is very eager to maintain his family and kinsmen by simply by black method, certainly goes to the darkest region of hell, which is called Andhata Mishra. Andhata Mishra, and he goes, and what happens there? Having gone through all miserable hellish conditions and having passed in regular order through the lowest form of human life, animal life prior to human life, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. The purport is helping us to understand this last, I think this is the last verse. It is said, just as a prisoner who has undergone troublesome prison life is set free again, the person who has always engaged in impious and mischievous activities is put into hellish condition. And when he has undergone different hellish lives, namely those of lower animals like cats, dogs, and hogs, by gradual process of evolution, he again comes back as a human being. What does that mean? A birth in lower species of animals is actually due to the is one of the ways of punishment of Yamaraj for the mischievous and sinful activities one performs. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that even though a person engaged in that practice of yoga should system may not finish perfectly and may fall down for some reason, his next life as a human is guaranteed. So that's why it is said that one should take to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada writes the last line of this chapter, Krishna consciousness is the purest life and it protects all human beings from gliding down to hell to take birth in a family of a dogs and or hogs. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your patience. I didn't, yeah. somehow want to stop either reciting the chapter to split into two or also the purports because it's very nice, then we can actually, I took a little extra time. Sorry for that. Hare Krishna. If someone has time and interested to share something, what was it? Yeah, you can.
Hare
That is,
Krishna.
yeah, go on.
Yeah, thank you for the nice recitation, Prabhuji. Also, it was a testing day for all of us. Thank you for relating, whatever happened at the, with the purport, and somehow, the purport's also aligned to our key, happenings, Prabhuji. It's a miracle, Prabhuji. So, thank you for that.
Mm. Yeah, thank
Right.
you. Yeah, thank you. So tomorrow we are going to read very important chapter. This is how Kapila Muni is telling how the movement of living entities. So if someone is, yeah, this is, it is said that if someone is carrying, yeah, who is a pregnant lady, should read or hear to this particular chapter because this describes vividly how mm, the growth takes place in the womb of the mother in gradually and also not just gives us a um, biological uh, knowledge, but it also gives us what is the condition of the infant who is being who is developing inside. So if yeah, feel free to join. You can share. Of course, it need not be that okay, it doesn't relate to us. We also need to know that because we were also once in the womb and we have come out. And if we don't want to go into the womb to suffer again, yeah, what we need to do. The Prabhupada writes in the purports. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. हरे कृष्ण.